Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome, intrepid podcast listener, to the future where you can find podcasts like House of Burton, one of the latest episodes, one of the latest chapters in the Houselights series here on the Nerd Party Network. I am one of the hosts here, John Mills, with my foresight abilities, my ability to see into the future and make crazy predictions. And I predict that this will be a fun episode as I'm joined by my co-hosts, the epic cinematographer who's colorblind, Darren Moser, and the ever flamboyant producer, Tristan Riddell. How are you guys?
Hey, that's why you shoot in black and white. It doesn't matter if you're colorblind.
Yeah, you have the gray or the dark gray.
I was about to quote Bill Murray, but then I decided against it.
Probably a good
Did you guys know Bill Murray was in this movie? Because I sure didn't.
I did. And this is going to be another one where I'm going to be the old man of the group. But before I slip into that skin of the old man, once again, remember to go to thenerdparty.com. Go to thenerdparty.com/contact if you want to reach out to the show. We get a lot of great ideas from people that listen to this show. Thank you so much. You guys are like producers to us. Producers who are making sure that this little podcast gets out there in more than just California, Oregon, and what the one is up there, Washington. And reach out to us on social media. You can find us out there on Twitter at Join Nerd Party and as the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. So once again, here we are. This movie comes out in 1994, which is actually a very interesting year for film. You have stuff like Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption. You have all of this stuff that is just mind-blowingly great that year. There was plenty that was not good. Listen to the archived show Retro Perspective for a review of all of the movies of 1994. I was on it. It was a tough year to get through. But
you can find at thenerdparty.com.
That's true, you can. And, you can, but everybody prefers to remember the really good stuff. And so you always think of the really good stuff. And Ed Wood was in that conversation as really good stuff. In fact, there's an Oscar-winning performance in here. Now, I saw this in the movie theater, big Burton fan, and I was going to go see it no matter what, because 1989 Batman, that means you get a free pass. I'm always going to give your stuff a shot. Yeah. So I did see this in the movie theater, but before we get to that, this is the first viewing for both of you of Ed Wood. Darren, what were your expectations? What did you already said you didn't even know that Bill Murray was in this. What did you know about this movie?
The only thing I knew was that Ed Wood is the director of Plan 9 from Outer Space, which I have seen more times than I've seen Ed Wood because of Mystery Science Theater 3000 and, those old B-grade movies and such. And that's all I knew. And then I didn't know, I assumed Johnny Depp was in it because Burton, so it's probably gonna have a minute. Yeah. And I was surprised Helena Bonham Carter wasn't in it. Maybe we're a little too early for that.
He was still dating Lisa Marie at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't in it, but
yes,
but no,
she was.
Yes, she was.
Oh, she was.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah, she played Vampira.
Oh,
Vampire,
okay. Of course, she did.
Right.
But yeah, that's all I knew. I did not know it was going to be in black and white. I did not know it was going to be kind of this biopic / fiction story. I didn't know Martin was going to be in it or any of these other characters. So, it was something that I had never seen before.
There you go. That's a great way to sum it up. This movie is something I've never seen before. That is a pull quote that's safe for any movie poster that you're going to put out there. Tristan, I'm shocked that this is your first time seeing this because you said that Tim Burton of 1990s, if you could get in a time machine and be his best friend, you would. So why didn't you see Ed Wood before now?
Tristan said his parents heavily screened Batman Returns. Somehow I don't think Ed Wood is getting by their radar. Just a thought.
They heavily edited Batman 89 and didn't even allow Batman Returns. I wish, speaking of time machine, I wish I could go back to a couple of weeks ago and take back me saying that I'm a huge fan of Tim Burton 1990s. Don't know why I said that. because it's turning out to not be true. But with this one, yeah, I don't know why. I never got a hold of this one. I've seen bits and pieces on TV, but I never took the time to watch it. I'm not sure why. I have no real reason. Like, I like Johnny Depp. I like Sarah Jessica Parker. I like Martin Landau. I like Tim Burton, but I have no reason for not watching this one. It just kind of slipped by. I remember seeing the movie poster constantly, and maybe I was too young and just didn't understand what the concept was. Watching it, I kept expecting a Schindler's List moment with the Angora sweater. Because if you look at the poster, it's pink.
Yeah.
Like, and so I kept expecting the
I see what you're saying.
The sweater to be pink when it popped up, and I was very disappointed.
I think that's interesting because let's go in there first, because this is a movie that I think if you had an opportunity to, I think even if Burton had an opportunity or the inkling to go back, there are probably a couple of things he would tweak here. But I want to ask, and I'll put this to you first, Aaron. This got a lot of buzz right out of the gate. Everybody was talking about, this is Tim Burton's big movie. This is his, wow, this is the Tim Burton movie. It did. It got a lot of positive press. A lot of that powered by Martin Landau's pre-release buzz. Oscar buzz was immediately attached to this. Do you think that, much like other movies like The Artist, that this movie endeared itself to critics and the film industry by simply being about the film industry? Because if there's one thing the film industry likes, it's talking about itself.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because box office wise, this movie did not resonate with the general populace.
True.
I think it earned like $6 million off an $18 million budget. And
less than $6 million.
Before we were recording, I was looking up. I was like, you know what? I wonder how much was The Crow made for? And The Crow was made for 23, a couple mil more, but it made like $98 million in 94, same year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm hesitant to say The Artist in the same breath as Ed Wood, because I feel like that is damning to The Artist, because I would never make such a comparison. But no, I think you're right on the fact that it's exactly what Hollywood loves to love, is itself. So that makes a lot of sense. I will say, I really liked Johnny Depp and Martin Landau's performance. Like, I was captivated by that for Johnny Depp, because it's the most I've heard him talk in a single movie, like ever. So he actually gets to act because he's talking and he's actually driving the story. And Martin as Bela Lugosi was amazing. Like, I am not surprised that he won the Oscar for that role. Everything else, I did not know what was happening. I'm like, because all these stars are popping up, and you got like, and there's Bill Murray, and there's Sarah Jessica Parker, and I'm like, what is? I didn't know what I was supposed to know. Like, is this like a biopic? Is this something that we're looking at? The downtrodden artist. I just was grasping at straws for that. And so I just clung to those two performances because that was the only thing I could ride the entire time.
Tristan, do you think that this movie, obviously Burton cares enough about this to make a movie basically in the style of an Ed Wood movie as an homage sort of thing. And there are certain stylistic things. Do you think that this is another example of Burton sacrificing substance for style?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this movie has a lot of substance. I think it was driving for a particular message of doing what you love, even if you're not good at it. Follow your passion, and also about how Hollywood will, chew you up and spit you out. I think there was a lot of great messages in there about being true to who you are, being true to what you love, and keep going after it, even if it kicks you in the teeth. I think there was a lot of substance to this, and I don't think there was an overemphasis on style. I really don't. Other than the black and white, I really don't think this wasn't like a an early 2000s Tony Scott film where he was experimenting with editing techniques with like Deja Vu and Men on Fire and Domino and stuff like that. I feel like this was a story that Burton wanted to tell, and I think this was if we look at Edward Scissorhands, we look at the Penguin in Batman Returns, and we look at Ed in Ed Wood. They're all people who are outsiders. They're all people who are outside of the system, but yet desperately want to be in the system, be in society. And, like with Edward Scissorhands, he wants to be a part of suburbia. With, Penguin, for a time, we think he wants to be, a part of Gotham. And with Ed Wood, he wants to be a filmmaker. He wants to be a part of Hollywood society. He desperately wants to be that person who says, I'm a director, I'm a producer, I'm a writer. I'm like Orson Welles. But it's just not going to happen. And it didn't happen for any of them. And I think Tim Burton himself has a lot of connection with that. And so long story short, I think there's a lot of substance to it.
See, I want to hang on that though, because I do think this is actually an interesting point. Is you're right, Burton does have a sympathy toward the outsider, but do you think that there is the possibility that Burton at this point is starting to lose his ability to relate to that outsider status? Because by this point, he's directed one of the biggest financial successes of all time. Do you think that this movie should have come earlier in his career?
No, I don't think so, because even if you're successful at your job or you're really good at what you do, it doesn't make you in the clique. It doesn't make you accepted on a personal level. Because, if you look at someone like Jackson Pollock, fantastic painter, revolutionized postmodern art in the 60s and onward. But he had a horrible social life, cheated on his wife constantly, had mental issues. I'm not saying this is Tim Burton. I'm just saying that, like, you can be really good at what you do, but yet still feel at loss, still feel empty, still feel outside of things. And again, I'm not saying Tim Burton is that way, but just because he's made some successful movies doesn't mean he's not an outsider. I've seen him at press junkets where, like Johnny Depp is talking, Helena Bonham Carter's talking, and Tim Burton is just kind of off in the corner doodling on his pad, like clearly nervous and clearly not wanting to be there. And so no, to answer your question.
Okay. Fair enough. I do think that as Burton's career goes on, he does start losing. I think it's inevitable that he starts losing some of that connection. Because
from a film standpoint, yeah.
So at what point does it happen? Probably not here, but I think that there's definitely an argument that as it goes forward. But Darren, you're Dr. Sci-Fi. You know a lot about sci-fi movies, and you mentioned you've seen Plan 9 several times thanks to Mystery Science Theater 3000 and everything. But I know that you're not the biggest horror fan in the world. Did you know a fair amount about Bela Lugosi coming into this, or was this all new for you?
No, I did. While I am not a more modern horror fan, I like thrillers and the more classical stuff because it's scary, but it's scary in a different way. I don't love torture porn. I don't love stuff like that where it's just, okay, you vomited all this stuff onto the screen, like, to get me. That doesn't, give me a thriller where there's tension and, so you're invested and you're sweating, but you don't feel like attacked by the film. So I knew of, Bela Lugosi and also, even though I'm blanking on his name, the other famous star from that era, who was the one who did Frankenstein?
Karloff.
That's Karloff. Right. Boris Karloff. Yeah. Again, knowing film and studying at a time to be a filmmaker, the things that they did with just the barest of spirit gum and almost no makeup, transforming into these characters. So yeah, I loved Landau's performance in this, and just yeah, it felt like that was him. I mean, I've never met him personally, and I don't, I haven't seen the behind the scenes documentary of him, to know what his personality is really like. But I felt like what was portrayed on screen really, really came through. So, so from the classic horror side, I empathize with him. And like you mentioned, it also is a bit like The Artist, where you have the person who was on top and now they're not. And I mean, we've heard that Hollywood story many, many times over.
Sure. Do you think that Burton is responsible in the way he handles what are actual people? Do you get a sense that these are the people as they were, or at least close enough to be respectful of their actuality? Or do you think that this is more of these people fit within a mold for a story I'm trying to tell? I can mold this to be the right type of story using these people.
I think as far as I know, they were very believable. I didn't feel like any of them were over the top or, a caricature of an actual person, but I don't really know much about what Ed Wood's personality was or anything like that. So as far as I could tell just from my limited knowledge, it was enough for the story. We know enough about these kinds of films to not take everything as gospel, as like, oh, it must have exactly happened like this when they met. It's like, well, no, it's the story to convey what Burton wants to say. But that part was okay.
So, Tristan, same question to you. I mean, a few short years before this, we have two stellar biopics from Oliver Stone, The Doors about the life of Jim Morrison, and JFK about the life of not really JFK, but more Jim Garrison and his wacky cadre. So, do you think that Burton is acting responsibly with these people's lives in terms of the story that he's telling? Or do you think that he strays a little too close to Oliver Stone territory?
I think if you asked his ex-wives and ex-girlfriends, they would say no. Sarah Jessica Parker's character, Dolores Fuller, the real Dolores Fuller, saw the movie and didn't like how they portrayed her character because, she was quoted as saying something akin to, "I didn't leave him because he made crappy movies. I left him because he's an alcoholic."
Mm.
And his ex-wife, Norma McCarty, said the same thing. Is like they didn't like his portrayal of him because, like, apparently him being an alcoholic was a cornerstone of his personality, and that was completely left out of this picture. And part of me is thinking, not to skirt your question that much, but I mean, like, that's kind of my answer, where I take this as pure fiction. Like, there's so many biopics where I'm just kind of like, okay, this is a filmmaker's viewpoint. This is not real life. This is a filmmaker's viewpoint. You cannot take this as gospel. Kind of like Social Network, by Fincher, which we've talked about on this show.
That wasn't real. It didn't exactly happen like that.
Like, even Zuckerberg himself said, he's like, yeah, they got a lot right, but they got equal amount wrong. And like the motivation of Zuckerberg in Social Network was that he got rejected by Rooney Mara, and in real life, Zuckerberg was already dating his now wife. Mm-hmm. So, before he made Facebook. So, like, if somebody like Fincher can get something that wrong, they have to get it wrong on purpose. And so it just kind of makes you feel like, yeah, biopics are just biopics. So, with that in mind, yeah, it's all just kind of, it's fiction with just a little bit of reality, but I'm going to use that as a jumping off point, if you don't mind, to say that I didn't want this to be a biopic. I didn't want this to be how he got to make Plan 9. I wanted to see the making of Plan 9. That's what I want. Maybe that's my own fault, and like it's those are my expectations. That's not the film's fault, but I do feel like it would have been a better. You didn't
set the bar low enough, Tristan. That's the problem.
I feel like that we know Ed Wood because of Plan 9. Like, that's why we know him. And so why not do that? Do Plan 9, but yet they wanted to focus on Bela Lugosi. And I feel like, yeah, we got a great performance out of it, but I think it would have made a much more interesting movie if the focus was Plan 9 and not just a footnote.
I think that's fair enough. I think it's an interesting enough story, but I want to return to this point about the biopic and about understanding that it's fictionalized and not touching on. I think I don't know which filmmaker it was, but some filmmaker said movies are the new history books. And so basically that people are going to watch this and think enough of it's true for it to count, sort of thing.
And that is terrible. I know exactly what you're talking about, because I read an article years ago about how most people get their history from movies, which is terrifying if you think about that.
But not new, because most people think of Julius Caesar's assassination in terms of how Shakespeare staged it, and it's like,
I'm not saying it's new.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. But it's interesting how we continually turn to entertainment. There's this trust we fork over to the storytellers to be like, oh, well, you're not going to lie to me. And it's like, well, they're in the business of lying to you. Why wouldn't they lie to you? This is like,
I'd rather not critically think about this. Just tell me what happened.
Yeah.
One time, I was in ancient history class, and we were talking about Hercules, and we were talking about why he was half god. And then one person raised their hand like, well, didn't he have like a potion and he didn't drink the last drop? And so that's why he was like only part god. And you could see my history teacher's soul leave his body. And he said, he's like, that's the animated Disney version.
Yeah.
That is not the myth. I was just like laughing to myself.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, Landau gets a lot of praise for portraying Bela Lugosi and, you know, the Oscar buzz stuff that we touched on before. Do you think this movie on its own, if it didn't have the supposed historicity of everything attached to it, would have even made a blip on anybody's radar? If you took these characters and you simply treated them as new fictional creations and didn't give them names like Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi, do you think that it gains any critical traction at all? Darren, I'll toss it to you.
I don't think so. No? I think if it's just this crazy story that Tim Burton dreamed up, I don't think you would register it with it at all.
I disagree with Darren, but it's kind of a cheat where I say if they were new inventions, people would say like, oh, that character's clearly based on Bela Lugosi.
Well, that's true. I mean, they'd have to need a little bit of modification to not actually be based on those characters.
Yeah. It's a hard question to answer, because I say yes, because Martin Landau's performance is so powerful, but if they changed it enough to where it wasn't Bela Lugosi and wasn't his situation, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer.
Okay. I mean, that's fair enough.
I'll retract my statement a little bit, because again, like you said with the artist, now the artist is not about a particular actor. It's all fiction. It is a very similar to like A Star Is Born and things like that. So, but it's not an actual person. You can't find a Hollywood Walk of Fame star for that person, but we still relate it to him. So I don't know. Maybe if it wasn't, I'll agree with Tristan, where if they don't deviate too much from these actual people, yeah, we're going to see the parallels. But maybe, I don't know, maybe with a little more consideration, maybe it would have portrayed it in an interesting way, just as an artist struggle versus Ed Wood's artist struggle.
Now, we've addressed the performances and everything like that, and the characters, reality versus fiction, and I want to get to what I consider to be the biggest elephant in the room, and has been. I would say that the Oscars, wherein Sam Jackson lost to Martin Landau, was one of those moments where a much younger John was watching the Oscars and, along with Sam Jackson, uttered a curse word because very, very famously, you saw Sam Jackson cuss on television. You couldn't hear what he said, but you saw clearly what he said with his mouth. And he was interviewed later. They said, "Did you actually say that when you lost the Oscar?" He said, "Yeah, I lost the Oscar. Of course I said it. I'm really happy for Martin Landau, but I wanted to win."
So I'm just looking up because I was curious who else was in contention. So Martin for Ed Wood, Samuel L. for Pulp Fiction, Chaz for Bullets Over Broadway.
Chaz Palminteri.
Yeah. Paul for Quiz Show, and Gary Sinise for Forrest Gump.
Yes.
That's right. Was this the Forrest Gump year?
Yeah, Gary Sinise.
Yes,
I mean, that in and of itself, because I mean, all three of these performances, I saw all of these performances that you mentioned in the movie theater, and well, except for Palminteri. Palminteri, I had to wait for video to see that, but yeah, it was a really crowded, strong supporting actor field. But I'm presuming you both have seen Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I know it's all subjective. I know it's a vote. I know votes get split, that sort of thing. I just want to embrace the discussion. Of those performances that you've seen, do you walk out of Ed Wood, this is your first viewing of it, and say, that's the one, this movie couldn't exist without that. This is absolutely, top of the pops performance? Or do you think that there were considerations in the vote? Because this is something that gets discussed in the Oscars a lot, where if they see that somebody still has a number of career years in front of them, they sometimes say, I don't need to vote for him this time. I'm sure he'll be in the category in a couple of years or something like that.
It's kind of like with Peter O'Toole, like when he got the Lifetime Achievement Award. Or when he actually, no, it wasn't even a Lifetime Achievement Award. It was an Oscar for a performance that no one thought he deserved the Oscar for, but yet people were like, "Well, it's Peter O'Toole; he deserves an Oscar."
Yeah, and
so he should get one because he might expire soon. Yeah, like it's last chance to get an Oscar, so he should get one.
Similar sort of controversy in '74 with Art Carney beating Al Pacino. Because Al Pacino was up for Godfather Part 2, and Art Carney won for Harry and Tonto, and everybody's reaction was, wait, what? Wait, no. Michael Corleone should have won that.
And that's the thing, is that like Pulp Fiction is by far a way better movie than Ed Wood.
Right.
But the thing is that the Martin Landau performance, Sam Jackson performance, the Gary Sinise performance, you have three people in a 5-person category with stellar acting jobs. And so you're going to split the vote. You're going to have people who are just kind of spread across. Like if it was just Martin Landau and people we never heard of, or people who didn't have, had okay performances, then yeah, sure. But yeah, I mean, Sam Jackson did a phenomenal job. Was it Oscar worthy? Absolutely. But Martin Landau was really good. And so I can't say that Sam Jackson was robbed, because Martin Landau did a great job.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think it's a robbed situation, but I think that like the way that I mentally approach a performance, and I sort of tipped my hand earlier, was, could the movie have been as good without that person in it? Can I see anybody else performing this role or this type of role? I cannot picture Pulp Fiction without Sam Jackson. I can't
picture Ed Wood without Martin Landau.
Right. And so that's where it becomes sort of like that weird toss-up sort of thing. But I think that there's definitely, if I have them in a horse race where it's like, well, both of these guys are absolutely vital to these movies, and then I look at Pulp Fiction and I'm like, but I like Pulp Fiction a whole lot more. Like, that's why I give the edge to Sam Jackson, because I'm like, that was a much more dynamic cast. To stand out among all of those performances, I think, was a greater feat than Landau giving a masterclass performance. But everybody around him, let's just say that he was clearly, the LeBron James of Ed Wood, and Sam Jackson was like the Michael Jordan of Pulp Fiction. Because like Jordan was a great player, but you also had Scottie Pippen, you also had Dennis Rodman, you also had all of these guys where like any of these guys could be an MVP, but he's just that much better. And then, Landau's just a superstar. And it's like, and the rest of the team's okay. And they make him look even better.
Man, that is a really apt metaphor.
Thank you. I too watched The Last Dance, but I also lived through Jordan's reign of excellence through the 90s. So,
I mean, none of us were born in the 90s, so yes, we did as well.
Okay. Listen here. I don't know how heavily your dad edited Chicago Bulls games or not. That's all I'm saying. Anyway. So, yeah, I think it's unfortunate because I think that revisiting this, and and Darren, I want to get your take on this. Revisiting this, I have very fond memories of seeing this the first time. I need you to be a counselor to me right now. Is nostalgia making me judge this a little less harshly than I should? Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
No, it's just like any Burton. Burton can be your cup of tea or not. And to kind of look at the fine lines between Burton films makes it even harder to kind of decide. I'm not saying, I guess what I'm actually am saying is that even if you're a Burton fan, you might love Batman, but not like Ed Wood. Like the man has so much variety that it's, why did we even go on this journey together, guys? It's like we're trying to, this man's career is just a wandering path of pulled strings.
Yeah.
But no, I would say that nostalgia is coloring a little bit. I mean, I love Martin. Again, I own like every episode of Mission Impossible. I love every time he pops into something. It's really fun to see. But I still would never watch this movie ever again.
Wow. I can't. I'll save my full reaction to that, but let's move on. I guess to score, because we all love to talk about the music. Tristan, I'll kick this over to you first. Were you stunned to find out that Howard Shore did the score instead of Danny Elfman this time?
Stunned, no, because as I was watching this, I was like, wait, this is way more reserved than what Elfman ever does.
Yes,
so
that is true.
I couldn't even tell you one thing about the music. I couldn't tell you a single thing about the music or any impressions that I have of it. And because of that, it's proof that Danny Elfman did not do it.
I think the score is okay in terms, I think it's good that you don't have a score that overshadows anything this time around, because it would have further diminished the movie. I do like that Shore chose to quote from Swan Lake, which was the theme for the original Dracula in 1931. And Darren, same question over to you. Do you think that this score works strictly with the film, or is this a score that you could pick up and listen to?
I'd say just with the film. Like it's nothing jumped out. Like I remember diddlies from The Artist more than I remember from this movie. But again, that's kind of our thing. Like we put the score off to the very end of the episode, and like we kind of like, oh yeah, we have that bullet point. We should talk about the score. And like sometimes it's really there, and sometimes it's there is a score, and it's not.
This isn't Howard Shore doing Lord of the Rings.
No.
Right.
Yeah, let it be.
Yeah,
or may it be, however that line is.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because you would think. I look at this as Burton making something of a statement film, because you have Batman, then you have a statement film. Then you have Batman Returns, then you have a statement film. And so it's surprising to me that we have Elfman working with him, I think all the way back to Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So this is a departure for him not to be using Elfman for the music. And that's why it's a bit
the first
stunning.
time, yeah.
It is a bit stunning, and I didn't do enough digging to find out. It had to be just some sort of scheduling issue, but I would be so intrigued, because everybody loves to talk about special editions and everything. I would be so intrigued to see if there were, to sit down with Danny Elfman and say, what would you have done with this? What would you have done differently?
I honestly think that this movie would have really lent itself to an Elfman score. I think something bigger, bombastic, something really kind of in your face, I feel really would have lent itself to kind of up the pace a little bit. I feel like Elfman gets Burton and Burton gets Wood and
Phrasing.
John.
Sorry, I can't help it. I watch Archer a lot.
I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. I think this is one of the I like Elfman, but I also know that he can go over the top sometimes.
Yeah.
But I feel like an Elfman score would have done really well in Ed Wood. I do.
You know, I know I just said a moment ago that Elfman could have overshadowed, but listening to your argument, I can agree with that very much, because Elfman would have done something that would have sounded even more like even more like an Ed Wood type of movie. Probably Elfman's tone lends itself to something more theremin like than Shore's choices did. And
yeah, I feel like even just with the opening of the Tombstones, I'm like, why am I not? I can't continue. Even with the opening of the Tombstones, I feel like, why am I not listening to Elfman right now? Like, we got Burton and Tombstones in black and white. Why the hell is Elfman not playing right now?
It's interesting, and this is, and Darren, I'd like to get your take on this. Watching it this time, I really thought
this is the first time I watched it.
But I mean, it's been long enough. It might as well have been. I mean, I remembered the whole.
I burned
movie.
the router that streamed this onto my computer. So no, I'm just kidding.
No, I looking at those opening credits though, it was really bizarre because I got the whole gag of opening in the graveyard and all of that stuff, but I found it such an odd choice that the names on the tombstones didn't jump out more. They didn't. I hate using this type of phrase, but they didn't pop more. It was this weird sort of thing where I was like, you couldn't. I would have viewed this and been like, we should change some lighting and reshoot this. I don't understand why he made that more difficult to see than it should have been. Is that just me having old man eyes, Darren, or did you get the same sort of impression?
I don't know. What did you think, Tristan?
That sounds like old man eyes. Okay. I didn't really get that impression. But side note, the opening sequence of the Tombstones cost more, even adjusted for inflation, than Plan 9 in its entirety.
Wow.
That makes sense.
Well, that was the other thing we were trying to figure out. Tristan and I were chatting before recording, and we're like, okay, this was an $18 million movie shot pretty much on location around LA. Like, where did the money go? Like,
where did 18 million get spent?
Like, I don't know where that would go. Like, this isn't a very complex movie. I mean, now granted, you have some bigger names and rising stars and Johnny, all of that stuff. But I'm like, that again, 23 million was The Crow, which had like miniature shots and like a million sets built and all this stuff. And I'm like, where did that money go? I need to see a breakdown. Does anyone have a line item list?
I'm just going to say The Mob and move on from there. I will. What I find so...
Did you go to the Baptist church? Is that where it went?
Stupid Baptists.
Yeah, I did like the fact that because we talked about Godfather 2 very briefly earlier that Senator Geary was in.
Yes, I can't see him as any other character.
Can't.
I'm sorry.
Even when he's in Apocalypse Now, I'm like, how did Senator Geary get into the military? And I don't know why there were certain decisions. I understand some decisions. I don't understand other decisions that go along with this. But one of the things that I think, Tristan, you definitely hit on is one of the bigger complaints is, spending not enough time talking about the making of Plan 9. And viewing it this time, I viewed this as a movie where, once again, sort of like Edward Scissorhands, Burton just falls so in love with the conceit of what he's doing that he forgets his first obligation is to keep me engaged for the entire 2 hours. And there are moments where I think just everything sags so much that you have to be willing to forgive it. Like Landau comes on screen and it comes alive and you sort of forget what happened. But as we're sitting here with this conversation, I can feel my estimation and rating of the movie dropping with each passing moment. So I ask, were those real monsters in the Ed Wood movies that they were shooting, or are you two the real monsters?
Are we the monsters
Yes.
ourselves?
So, parting thoughts, Darren, is there anything from this, setting aside Landau's performance, is there anything from this that will stick with? You've already said you're not going to watch this again, but is there anything when somebody says, hey, did you ever see Ed Wood, where you'll say, you know what? I'm not nuts about it.
You know what? I've never heard of that. I don't think we should look it up or think about it ever again. No,
but just, where you might say, you know what? I don't really like it, but this thing was really good. This is what I liked most about this film.
You can't edit this pause out, Tristan. You have to leave the pause in. No, I mean, I will say, I think the fact that it's in black and white works. Like, not all films work in black and white, and it didn't have to be in black and white, but it, again, maybe because of the Plan 9 aspect, maybe because of the history, like it's very clean black white. It's bright, it's well lit. It's not like we're hiding our sins in the lack of color. But so I like that. I did enjoy that. And because that's, it's hard to make a black and white film be financially successful. Case in point, Ed Wood. But no, I did enjoy that aspect of it. So I'll give it that.
What about you, Tristan? What's the thing aside from Landau's performance that pops for you in this movie?
I think Depp did a great job. I think it amazes me how many voices Depp can do. And it's crazy to me that he hasn't done more in voiceover. Like we see certain actors, like look at Mark Hamill. Like obviously he didn't have the live action career that Johnny Depp did, but like he's prolific voiceover artist. And I really feel like Johnny Depp could have done that. Now, granted, he's done some voice acting, like he's done Corpse Bride and Rango and stuff like that. But I really feel like Depp could be, one of the best voiceover artists of all time. That might be where he needs to go moving forward. But yeah, I think besides Martin Landau, I feel like Johnny Depp did a phenomenal job. And I can't believe that Sarah Jessica Parker agreed to criticize her own face as a horse face.
That was funny.
Yeah.
I'm like, they wrote that in there?
They wrote that in there. Like, oh my God. Like
that seemed a bit, I mean, on the plus side, you can be like, well, she obviously doesn't let it get to her if she's willing to go along with that.
She has a very, like, this is like, not to get too sidetracked, but like, yes, she has a very unique face. She has a magnificent nose. I think she's a stellar beauty. I've always thought that she is just a very amazing beauty in Hollywood. But yeah, like she often gets made fun of for like the shape of her face, especially on Family Guy for some reason.
I'll log on, with that same sort of thing where it's like, I don't get the joke.
Yeah.
It's mean spirited to begin with, but I remember Sarah Jessica Parker all the way back. First time I ever saw her in a film actually was L.A. Story with Steve Martin.
Right.
And I remember seeing
Nick
the movie
Cage one.
I don't remember the Cage one offhand. But I do remember seeing her in L.A. Story, and both my brother and I were like, wow, she's really cute. And then all of a sudden this joke came out of nowhere, and I don't get it. And on top of that, I mean, it's really not a cool joke,
No, it's not a cool joke. It's BS. I don't like it. No. And it's interesting that they included it, and hey, she's a good sport about it, but I think it's no. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, John. It's Honeymoon in Vegas was the movie I was thinking.
That's the one. You're right. I saw that alone in the movie theater when I was vacationing with my parents. Really depressing memory. Thanks for bringing it up. But I think that one of the things that I would actually stick with is I did do some research about Vampira's legacy. I encourage others to do the same. I will never look at Elvira the same way again. I grew up with Elvira on the brain.
Me too.
Oh no, it's not a happy story. Like I would have sued her too.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I always assumed that Elvira got inspired by a vampira.
It's even worse than that. According to what I've read on the internet, which is a thing where you can find stuff out, apparently she was in discussions to revive the vampira character, dropped out due to creative differences, and then got screwed because they said, okay, well, they held an open casting call and Elvira was born. And I don't understand how you don't win that lawsuit. I think that's just ridiculous. Like it makes me angry enough. I want to go to like the online store and buy a vampira thing just to be like, I got you. I got your back. Your estate gets a couple of bucks here. That's cool.
That is rough.
But I also did further research because growing up, as any red-blooded American male was in the 80s and early 90s, I was a huge pro wrestling fan. And I remember George the Animal Steele. I remember watching him. He was there in the mix. He was never Hulk Hogan and he was never Macho Man or Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, but he was an old reliable. You liked it when the Animal showed up. It was always a fun storyline. And so I did a little more digging, and what's terrific is he's portraying another wrestler, Tor Johnson, in this, who was in the movies, and he's got his movie role here.
A hairy man.
Oh, very hairy man who had a master's degree and was a teacher and went to Michigan State. Like, you read this guy's history, he became a pro wrestler because he just wasn't making enough money. And Bruno Sammartino, who, if anybody knows pro wrestling, legendary figure in the sport. It is a sport. It's fixed. It's scripted, but they are athletes. And I will say that to my dying day. Sammartino took a shine to him. I was like, hey, you got what it takes. And the whole, well, anyway, do more reading at your local library or on your local internet, if they have it in your area. So we get to the point where we have to give our ratings here.
Actually, before we go into the ratings,
we get to our ratings,
I want to say
please.
one thing, just one thing. Vincent D'Onofrio. When I saw him in the credits, I was like, "Oh, holy crap! Vincent D'Onofrio's in this." I love Vincent D'Onofrio. Yeah, I think he's a very underrated actor, and he's a phenomenal actor. And then when I saw him pop up in the bar, I'm like, "Oh my god, he's going to play Orson Welles! That's Orson Welles!" And then he opens his mouth, and Brain is speaking.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, Maurice LaMarche. What the hell? And it was a bad dub. It was a
terrible dub. But the thing is, that opens the question of considering the fact that Burton was so in love with the conceit to keep using camera angles and edits that would have been native to that schlocky sci-fi of the time. Was the edit bad was the dub bad on purpose? If it was, that's a swing. No, it is, because that's a huge swing and a miss. Because unless you're going to stop the film, have it go to a white screen, have Tim Burton show up on screen and be like, "Hey, just so you know, in this next moment, I did that on purpose." It doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. I like you've been hearing a lot of that lately with Matrix Resurrection, where people are like, "Oh yeah, no, like Lana did it on purpose because she didn't want to make another one." I'm like, no. A bad film is still a bad film,
right?
Like even if you intend to make a bad film, or even if you intended, you're like, "Oh no, I meant to do that, make this bad decision."
Seinfeld choosing to put on the rainbow suspenders to purposely tank the other comic playing that night. He's still knowingly bombing. So in support of your point there. So
there you go. So now we can go into the ratings. I just want to talk about that.
I'm glad you brought that up, though. I am very glad you did. But we'll toss it over to you first, Darren. I'm almost afraid to ask what your rating is of this.
Well, there's one thing I like about this, and that's Martin's performance, and so I'm giving it a 1. It's
wow.
I mean,
fatality.
I mean, yeah, it won an Oscar. It won Oscars. It did this. I'd be fine never watching this again. And again, I do say that with a bit of, like we said, with Tim Burton movies, Tim Burton is an acquired taste in of itself, and I feel like this is just a degree too far for me. I wasn't interested in the subject matter. It wasn't enough to, keep me engaged. I would have also loved more Plan 9 aspects. And while I did also enjoy, Depp's performance, I wish he had acted like this in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. I think it was much more interesting and actually warm and relatable in a way. Whereas I feel the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory performance was just creepy and just as like, and again, that's how he played it. But I if they had taken this personality and put it in that film, I think that would have been even better. I'm going to pretend. Yeah, I'm going to go back to a week ago where I hadn't watched this film yet, and just What we're talking about next week, guys? No.
Oh, can't wait to get to that one. Tristan, where are you with Ed Wood?
Well, it's not a 1, but it's not much better. I'm giving it a 2. On my scale, 2.5 is mediocre and 2 is bad. I think this is a bad film. I do. I genuinely think this is a bad film. It doesn't feel like a Burton film. I was bored to tears. I watched this with my wife, and when it was done, I was like, I had no idea this was going to be such crap. And I really wanted to like it. I really did. And Martin Landau's performance is fantastic, but it's kind of like Meryl Streep in The Iron Lady. Like, you can have a fantastic performance, but if you have a crap movie, it's still a crap movie. And that's where I'm at with this one. I feel like I wanted more Plan 9. Johnny Depp is fine, but it's not enough to save the film, just like Martin Landau is not enough to save the film. Like, is this a Bela Lugosi story? Is this the Ed Wood story? We had a lot of protagonist confusion where, like, it was clearly Ed Wood's story because it's called Ed Wood. You have Ed Wood, you spend more time with him, but with Bela Lugosi being more interesting, what are we doing here? And it just, I'm never going to watch this again either.
I think that nostalgia helps here. And I'm going to be completely honest. When I came out of this, I had a lot of the same gripes that the two of you have. And it was a bit odd. I was a little bit shaken, I guess, because my memory of this was so much better than the experience of watching it this time. And because of that, I initially came out and I said, well, no, that performance by Landau was great. And Depp does some really good stuff. I like Sarah Jessica Parker a lot. And it's interesting that he does these sort of things with the style. And he's obviously mimicking the movies that he watched growing up and what he loved about them. And so I was initially on the playing field of saying 4 because I figured, 4. 4 is good. But sitting here,
you can't do a 4 if you add my score and Tristan's score together. It doesn't even equal 4.
I know. And as we've sat here talking,
no, you could do whatever you want.
Oh no, I know. But as we sat here talking, it's a moment where I just sort of realized I have to be a little more honest with myself. I don't think I'll ever watch Ed Wood again. I might. I don't hate it. I like a lot of the stuff that he does. I think Bill Murray is a gem in this. This is right at the moment Bill Murray is just starting to turn the ship around and become the Bill Murray we all fell in love with afterward. Like this is pointing in the direction of Rushmore Bill Murray, right? This is 5 years before, and this is where the ship starts turning, where Murray's doing a little bit more subtle stuff with his humor. So I think he's a gem. I really think George the Animal Steel is a lot of fun. Like it's a good act. As good as Landau is, George the Animal Steel is nowhere near as good, but it is additionally a difficult task to play a bad performance on purpose. And there is a difference to it. And I think that when he is inhabiting Tor Johnson on screen, he does a good job of being in that moment. But I think that Landau's performance, Sarah Jessica Parker's performance, Johnny Depp's performance are all strong enough that this remains a 3 for me, at least for now. So to your earlier point, Darren, you gave it a 1, Tristan gave it a 2, I went it with a 3. So there you go. That's where I end up with it. We would love to hear from anybody listening as to whether you wound up, whether this is is this a 5-star classic? Did we miss the mark? We are, as you can tell from our conversation, we are always open to hearing other opinions. So be sure to reach out to us again on social media at Join Nerd Party on Twitter, the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram, thenerdparty.com/contact if you want to reach out to us directly. But Darren, where can people find you online?
They can find me at drsci-fi.com, DRSCIFI, or here on the Nerd Party Network talking about being a maker on Maker's Method or Star Trek on SETI Alpha 3.
Tristan, how about you?
You can find me on Letterboxd and Twitter at The Insane Robin. And on Letterboxd, I checked what people think of this film, and there were so many 4.5 and 5 stars. I was like, what? What is going on? Like, so many top critics were just like, yes, this is an amazing, perfect movie. And I was beside myself. But yes, you can find me there at The Insane Robin. You can also find me on this network. I have tons of archive shows and shows that I'm very proud of with Star Trek or general movie shows. Just go to you can check my profile. You can go to Tristan Riddell. Every host, and that's one thing that I really like about our website, is that every host has their own profile page where you can find out where they are and even if they're outside of the network, like they have links outside their network. So check that out by going to thenerdparty.com.
Man, I really have to update that because I'm known as Kessel Junkie on the internet, KESSELJUNKIE. You can watch the ratings for movies that I'm watching drop in real time if you follow me over on Letterboxd. And you can find me right here on the network co-hosting a delightful little Star Wars podcast called Aggressive Negotiations with Matthew Rushing. And now, as I predict the future, I see that next week, I am really looking forward to hearing exactly how big a sledgehammer Darren is going to bring to Mars Attacks. Because boy, howdy, that is a defining moment in Burton's career, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. So in the meantime, be sure to keep the seat warm and the popcorn fresh here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.